Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, January 11th, 2016 at 7:03 p.m. Tonight, Council is having a series of 4 committee meetings as well as a presentation from Mr. Joseph Lally, who is Senior Associate VP of Information and Technology and Administrative Services at Ohio University. He'll be making a presentation to Council members on what's called a Memorandum of Understanding that exists between the university and the city, and this is part of an annual update. You'll also notice that if you are looking at the agenda on the screen directly behind us, we do have one minor amendment. While we are in the committee of the whole this evening, after the Memorandum of Understanding, we will be having one additional topic that will be the International Street Fair before we move to City and Safety Services. And while we're speaking of agendas, and before I forget, to let people know that next Monday is Martin Luther King Day and is a holiday observed by the city. So our next City Council meeting will not be Monday night, it will be Tuesday night next week. Thank you very much. And Mr. Lally, if you would join us, and thank you for taking the time tonight to share the information about the Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you, President Isley. The MOU group, as we call ourselves, was formed in 2012, and the role of the group is to build on the Memorandum of Understanding to identify collaborative initiatives that we want to make formal, and most importantly, to strengthen the cooperative partnership between the city and the university for the benefit of us all. The City of Athens is represented by Safety Service Director Paula Mosley, President Nisley, at the time before his election as mayor, Councilmember Patterson, City Engineer Andy Stone, and City Planner Paul Logue. From the university, we had the Vice President for Student Affairs, myself, Director of Engagement and Real Estate, Donna Goss, Chief of Staff for the Provost Office, Laura Myers, Director in the Office of Equal Opportunity Accessibility, Diane Bouvier, and the Chief of Staff, Special Assistant to the President, who is here tonight, Jennifer Kirksey. Now, I just want to stop for a moment. As I was putting this presentation together, I was always struck by the fact that at the university side, we have much longer titles. Right, but this is a report that comes to a close essentially in June of 2015. That was one of the things we had to correct ourselves in the presentation. One of the things I was struck was by the fact that there were some themes that sort of jumped out. One was working for the greater good. Secondly, the cooperation that not only that exists, but really we have to have in order for us to both work together. The notion of mutual aid and support, and then being able to pursue opportunities when they come up. Certainly, first and foremost, the Joint Disability Accessibility Agreement was one of the accomplishments in the past fiscal year, ended June 15th. That was signed by President McDavis and Mayor Weil, and it charges both working groups to work on a scope of agreed collaboration. It's been a very important piece of work. We had a comparative policy course that was given at the university, a service learning course taught by Professor Thompson. Out of that came suggestions on how to improve the relationship between the city and the university, and it provided recommendations on the composition and formality of this MOU group to utilize in future endeavors. We had the Safer Athens initiative. A lot of work goes into special events and fest planning, from Halloween to Numberfest, Millfest, and that includes a joint statement from the president and the mayor in advance of the weekend events, trying to encourage safety, civility, and just general good behavior. Another first in the past year was the barbecue held by the Joint Police Advisory Committee, or JPAC as they call themselves. Over 1,000 attendees. I went to it. It was really good food, good music, and a good time. And this year we also had that this past September, and certain members of the committee can apparently dance, and some can't. So this is an annual event. As I said, we had it last fall, and we'll continue to have it in the coming years. The university undertook a project last June to do a Between the Bridges repair to the bikeway between Richland and Stimson. Went about 4 weeks longer than expected because of unforeseen site conditions, but we did get it open before the end of June, and we celebrated that opening in July. That included, besides the ribbon cutting, a community ride to the recreation center on East State Street. Another theme is cooperation, and I remember taking this picture and thought it sort of epitomized the need for cooperation, the benefit of cooperation. This is what I referred to as the Baker Plaza spaghetti when we were doing the utility tunnel work. There's a Columbia Gas of Ohio gas line through there, medium pressure gas line. There's numerous city utilities, numerous university utilities, including what you see is the plywooded top of, at the time, the steam tunnel underneath there. And this is the kind of thing we run into all the time, and why it's so important, and both parties benefit from cooperation. Certainly a major undertaking at the university this year has been the update to the campus master plan. The city we've had community and city representation in this, and there's direct cross-representation between the MOU group as these planning efforts continue, and we're hoping to get that wrapped up by June of this year, near our end of the fiscal year. Along that vein, the Ridges Master Planning Committee has been working on the ridges, and again we have MOU members and city commission members helping to guide our planners and our consultants on what is an area of key interest for the city and the university. Transit, we continue to work with Athens Public Transit. GoBus is a key part of the transit system for the university. We, as part of the Mulberry Street Utility Project, essentially renovated the bus shelter was there, but also put in provisions to bring electricity out to that shelter so that we can do things such as provide where's the bus display as we continue to explore opportunities for making transit attractive for members of the community and of the university. The MOU group worked again for a second bid to host the International Town Gown Association. Paula was very involved in that. And while we're not selected, the process itself was a good experience and opportunity for the city and the university to work together. And the city and the university had representation at the annual conference in Clemson. And I think we did make a presentation this year at the conference held this summer. And then we also have another example of that outcome is the work we've been trying to do with targeting graffiti both on campus and in the city, of the TAG group, targeting area. Another example was the decision agreement to open Bobcat Lane. We were finally able to get underway in construction in May, late May, early June, and there were a number of conditions around that. We've been working through those conditions since it opened. But one of the things it did was improve the access to and from campus for the intercity motor coaches, particularly GoBus and other public transit vehicles that need to get into that area. Another example is IT. Ohio University's Office of Information Technology continues to provide support to the city. It's internet access, technical support, and we think it's a cost savings for the city, and we're happy to provide that on an ad hoc, as needed, a la carte basis. The planning for the tobacco-free campus, again, another example of cooperation, even though we did not roll this out until August of this calendar year. In other words, in the new fiscal year, there was an awful lot of work that was done between the city and the university getting ready for this rollout, if you will. Everything from working through some issues to trying to position things and signage around the city's butt boxes that were designed by or decorated by PassionWorks. Mutual aid support. Perhaps the most. This was the fire contribution to the city, a 5-year commitment to provide over $250,000 for the purchase of a fire truck is an example of that. Hardly a week goes by that we aren't helping each other out on civil issues, whether it's a leaking water main or a backed up storm sewer, cleaning, investigation of salting of roadways. This is a cooperation that goes on at a very tactical level between our managers and our staff and the city's managers and staff, and it's just, for me, a really good model of cooperation, and it just makes things so much easier, and we're so much more effective together working as a team. Certainly around mutual aid, I think the Union Street fire brought out the best in the city, brought out the best in the university. There was just tremendous cooperation. We were all helping each other, and I personally was very proud to be part of the team that was part of that effort to respond to the students, to support the city firefighters and all the volunteer firefighters, feeding, providing food, or whatever was needed, with no questions asked. To me, that was just the poster child of mutual aid and support between the city. And we will continue to pursue joint opportunities that come up. I pointed out the Mulberry and Park Place utility work. While that was a university-initiated emergency project, we took that opportunity to do a number of things, working with Columbia Gas and also working with the city to get that project done. Another opportunity was us executing a plan around a new roadway out to the northeast. We rebuilt an unmaintained portion of Mill Street for the city as part of that project. Lots of new sidewalks and street lights. Actually, quite a beautiful drive that was opened on a very cold day in January of 2015. We called that South Green all the way to Mill Street now, and that caused us to rename a section of roadway between McKinley and the bike path to be called Rufus Street. And I learned what a difficult process it is to rename a street. So looking ahead to 2016, the MOU group continues to work together. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for land use planning, collaborative infrastructure projects, in particular roadways. We're having discussions now about possibilities. Certainly community recreation has been a theme in the campus master planning updates, and as I read the papers, I think it's been a theme here as well. And so we hope to get to some conclusion on the campus master plan by the end of our fiscal year, and probably move into implementation after June if it's adopted and approved. And again, we'll look for opportunities around shared resources and transportation. So are there any questions?
Wow. Mr. Lally, thank you for taking the time to make this report. I've been at other public meetings in the community where people have asked about the Memorandum of Understanding and not been as familiar with as some of the people who work on the different projects. And so I think this is really helpful to highlight some of the things that really probably some of the agreements were probably in existence before the ladder truck, but I think with the support from the university for the ladder truck, I think perhaps solidified historically some of the workings between the university and the city. So thank you.
It truly is a team effort. We value the relationship.
You will see before you this year the mutual aid agreement that it will be up for renewal. That expires in October of 2016. So.
Okay. Any questions from council members or Mr.
I'd like to just
Mayor?
make a comment. I really appreciate the communication between the two entities. I know for many people here who have lived in this community for a long time, that didn't always exist. And the fact that it's out in the public, it's transparent, you're giving reports that explain what you've done, I think that just goes miles to help the community understand the importance of communication and working together. So, I mean, it seems obvious, but, you know, I think it's great what's happened and developed over time.
Good, great. That's what we want.
Symbiotic, right? That's right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item under Committee of the Whole is a discussion of the International Street Fair, and which takes place every year and has for many years, and is a highlight for our community. So we're wanting to make sure that city and university are planning in adequate time for street closures, dates, and locations. Councilmember Michelle Pappy will lead this discussion.
Thank you, President Isley. This was originally under transportation, and this date we became aware of the date, which is April 9th of International Street Fair. And when that happened, there were many issues that then arose, and we decided to move it to a committee of the whole. And the fact that Ohio University personnel are here tonight will help us in that discussion. April 9th also happens to be the weekend of Numberfest. And for many of you and many of us here at Council, we know that there was quite a bit of discussion. And of course, we had many people for many months coming to us regarding the concerns of Numberfest in particular, which, as many know, caused a lot of service and safety, public safety issues that weekend. Now, International Street Fair has been a part of this community, and it's a beloved event for, I think, 16 years. Is that correct? And so, is it longer than that? I don't know. But the bottom line is that I reached back out to when we needed to come forward with the closing of, usually we close Court Street for this event. And those of us on council and many people within city administration and the police received and were a party to, maybe experienced themselves, issues related to safety-related issues because of the numbers that are here for this music festival, and also the stretching of our resources when it comes to service. Police, ambulance, clogged streets, whatever the situation is. Now, we have discussed at length here at council and heard citizens' concerns, both who live inside and outside the city limits. This event occurs outside the city limits. That event does. But it has affected also what happens in downtown, uptown, Athens, the weekend of that event. So, council members, if you'd like to comment on that, I think city administration, they've been talking about it quite a bit. I don't know if anybody else wants to make a comment right now. That's kind of the history of why we're talking about this as a committee of the whole, and the fact that International Street Fair and Numberfest are the same weekend.
And I think Councilmember Cochran has a comment
I'd just like to
first.
clarify on the date. Is the date of the International Street Fair the 16th? Because the 16th is the date of Numbers Fest.
Yes.
Right. So am I on the 16th? Okay. Did I write the wrong date? Yes, it is the 16th.
And it's the 34th annual
Thank you.
International Street Fair.
Because you used to be quite involved with that, or still are. Okay, so 34th annual, and I apologize, I looked it up wrong. It's the 16th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you
Councilmember
for that
Fall.
clarification.
I would like to say I'm really super disappointed that we even have to talk about this, because one of the things that occurred after Numberfest was discussions with the promoter and producer of Numberfest, and he up and down said, oh, I'm going to coordinate, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And obviously he has not fulfilled some of the things that he indicated that he was going to do. And this is just really disappointing in that whole thing. And it's really disappointing that we even have to talk about having one of our cherished events have to, be impacted about, because of this. And I'm disappointed.
Other comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. Thank you, Councilmember Pappy, for reminding us about challenges we face here with these two events. I just want to remind the public and council members, the administration, that we have received a number of complaints and frustrations expressed by people in the community that are dealing with the Numberfest event. And I was approached by a few business owners as well from Court Street who expressed frustration and sadness in acknowledging that an event such as the street fair, which is one of pride and a blessing to our community, was tainted by the tomfoolery or drunkenness of people that were participating in Numberfest. Now, obviously, not everyone going to Numberfest is under the influence or making bad decisions, but more than a handful surely are. So this is a concern that we're facing as a community that impacts all of us, including the university. So I do think we have some challenges in front of us in trying to find an amicable solution.
Councilmember McGee.
Yes. Could you tell me who sets the date for the International Street Fair?
There is a committee at the university that sets that, and if Ms. Kirksey's, I know you're on that committee, if you'd like to come forward at any point up to the podium, but they set the date, and in conjunction with someone, an appointee from the administration, I think is a part of that.
Or at least confers. Why don't you come on up, Ms. Kirksey? Thank you for being here tonight.
Sure.
Potentially answer our questions. And I think that's our point, too, is trying to start the discussion early enough so that we can see what kind of options we might have to assist.
And, you know, we absolutely appreciate the city's support for such a cherished event. It's a shared point of pride for our entire community. And we appreciate the city's willingness to be creative and to look at solutions so that we can be protective of this event, because it is a positive counterpoint event as well. And just Krista McCollum-Beatty just came in, and she is most closely associated with the planning and can also answer any questions that you may have. I know that one question was how the date is set, and I can let her speak to that as far as if you want to. Is that okay if she comes up and
Sure, thank
answers
you.
those questions?
Kristen and I have been speaking on the phone back and forth the last several days.
Yeah. So how is the date set?
Sure, thank you. And I just came from a meeting with the International Student Union, which is the student organization that hosts this. You may look closer. Okay.
The mic, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the date is always the Saturday before the final week of classes. So we try to go as late in April as possible to avoid bad weather, but not so late that students are busy studying for exams. Are there other questions about it?
Was there any effort made to contact the people from Numbers Fest and see if something could be resolved?
Not by us.
Okay.
They were supposed to.
Oh, I understand that. I just wondered whether it was a mutual kind of conversation or just they were supposed to kind of thing.
The last discussions that the city had was that they were, and the fact that it's always kind of like on a set Saturday before they knew, they don't care. I don't think they
34 years.
34 years. It's really disappointing because they know this calendar has been out for a while, so they have known probably since they began, signing up acts that this was happening.
Mayor, yes, Mayor Patterson.
I want to start by thanking you. I mean, the International Street Festival, to me, I love it. My daughters love it. A lot of the citizens of Athens love it. But I want you guys to know that administration, we have the same concerns about this. Hence, us even having the conversation to look at possibly moving the event to another street, largely because it's stretching our law enforcement to the brink, and a lot of it having to do with the Numbers Fest event. To where just having communications with Chief Pyle this morning, talking about it's kind of like it's this or it's this, but it can't be both. Meaning coverage with what Numbers Fest and how it impacts the city. And so we're thinking that with Park Place, possibly moving it down onto Park Place, having closure, or South Court Street in that area, would make things a lot easier in terms of, again, mutual aid, having OUPD and Athens PD, again, collaboratively working that, because it's a simple event to police, because it typically doesn't need to be policed. Unlike other events that happen to collide with our beloved International Street Fest.
Yes, Councilmember Reisner.
Is it possible to advance it 1 week?
Well, and that's what I would like to say. This was brought to my attention in the fall. Jen called me in the fall, and we talked a little bit about it. And we started reaching out to the city. And then Councilmember Poppy called me on Friday, and we had a very good discussion about it. Because this event in particular takes probably 150, if not 200 student volunteers, I really would like to get feedback from the students and input on both changing the location or changing the date. Part of the reason I'm running to get here is I had a chance to talk with some of them right after our meeting this evening, and they first of all said, please tell the city thank you. We really appreciate your support because we couldn't have the event without the support of Athens City. They are open to talking about other locations, other dates. The Saturday before is possible. We're all concerned that that's April 9th, and it could be 70 and sunny, or it could be snowing in Athens on that day. We all know that. Going a week later is not going to work for the students because it's right before they're studying for their finals. They suggested possibly a Sunday. I don't know how the city would feel about moving the street fair to a Sunday.
Isn't that Athens Beautification Day on that Sunday?
It would be Athens Beautification Day.
It is that beautiful.
As planned.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Which is always good after festivals.
Yeah, that would be.
If we had to change one, you can. I'm concerned if maybe Beautification Day, if it came to it, could be it's more important for me to have the International Street Festival. And I think that April 9th is really, we have it in the afternoon?
And I'm sorry, is there a fest on the 9th? Do we know?
We may be looking at Palmer Fest on April 9th.
So again, the 10th perhaps for beautification. But again, I don't know how far they are in their planning for the Athens
Fairly
beautification.
far along in their planning, I believe. Councilmember Cochran, do you have any updates on that?
I'm not going to say that those two events couldn't coincide on the same day. I would suggest that it wouldn't be possible to reschedule Beautification Day at this point because there are many community partners who already have service projects planned. So that, I think, would be the only
And I would say that in terms of your planning, you have a keynote speaker and you have events all through the course of the week that would be at this point, at this stage of the game for this year, would be difficult for you.
It would. The students weren't opposed to the idea, though, of maybe kicking off International Week with the street fair, so that would move it to the 9th. But they are very concerned about the weather, and this event is funded by the university through student fees, but all of the things that happen on Court Street, the different booths, all the food and everything, that's funded by the student organizations, and they have to front quite a bit of money for that. And so if they stand the risk of losing everything that they put into doing their stand. So they are sensitive to that. We did talk about the possibility of keeping the street fair the same date, but moving it to kind of that corner that's Park Place and South Court Street, maybe putting the stage at Baker. The first question was, but we like going into the city for this. They like the feel of the city welcoming them. They're not sure how moving it to that location would it address some of the concerns about people still getting to the street fair through all the fest craziness. And then several of our organizations do partner with businesses on Court Street for electricity for their stalls. We've had a great relationship with several different businesses who actually prepare the food for the students. So all of those things would have to be worked out. I would also like to bring the city-county health department into the conversation because they're a great ally with us in making sure that all the groups that are selling food have taken the proper food safety steps that they need to.
One other point, it's not just the streets that we're concerned about on street for this. It's also the impact, the number of people that are coming and going from the hospital and all the traffic that happens there. And if we have another big social, public event, that just, something, if somebody got hurt at the street there and needed to get to the hospital really quickly, that's just, it's overloading not only our police, but also some of the street
infrastructure. Any other
The
comments?
complaints we received last year were primarily due to intoxicated individuals leaping through the closed streets in the city of Athens during the International Street Fair. So if you have them on the same date in that location, that will occur.
I know vehicles were also somewhat impeded on their traverse to the uptown area because of students wanting rides or, kind of infringing on the drivers and asking for rides and those kinds of things. It was, kind of scary for little kids in vehicles where there was somebody pounding on a vehicle, and teenagers coming in from the neighborhoods, local kids who wanted to go to the street fair, and they had to make their way through some of the activities that were in the uptown area to get to the street fair. So,
East Union has electricity, like right in front of the College Green area with all the international flags. We're trying to find a way to accommodate. As the mayor stated, we share and feel the same. This is a tried and true Athenian tradition that we're now coming to you to ask to modify based on a private endeavor outside in the county. So.
Yes, Councilmember Cochran.
I guess my final thought on the issue would be, what if we tried this year with a slightly modified location and not moving it all the way down to Baker Center, but as Paula suggested, moving it somewhat down so that, we're sort of bridging campus and the city and have that intersection be sort of the hub of activity where the stage might be located so that, we're not quite as far down Court Street where there's more traffic potential. So, and then see how it goes this year as we move ahead and thinking about next year.
We certainly could look at using the block on either side of Union of Court if that would help matters. I mean, we're very open to discussing it. I haven't had a whole lot of time to talk with students and some of our other partners.
And I don't think we need to settle it tonight, but I surely appreciate you taking the time out of a busy evening to begin the discussion with us.
We wanted to get the
and these
discussion
sound like
going.
some good first steps and some considerations. And I know that we feel a little bit disappointed perhaps that some of the Numberfest organizers settled on that same date, but that doesn't mean that we've stopped the conversation with them to ask further. Yes, they did say they wanted to cooperate, so asking them to come with certain responsibilities or some suggestions that they may have to make. I do know that they have more parking on site there now, so that might relieve some of the traffic in town. But we'll see.
So to be clear, as you go back to the organizers and talk with the students, our main issues are, Paula?
We feel that the location has kind of been
Compromised.
good word. And I'd like to add this to our standing weekly meeting with Ohio University as a conduit for continued conversation to be able to bring back something that we all feel that we can agree on and be good for the event.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for letting us be part of the conversation.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Those are the items for the Committee of the Whole. We'll now move on to City and Safety Services, and Councilmember Kent Butler chairs that committee.
Thank you, President Isley. We have a couple items on here this evening. First, beginning with the city pool. Second, looking at salt and water softening, followed by the depot lift station, and then a couple miscellaneous issues. So beginning with the city pool, I'll offer a little bit of background and help us paint the picture. We do have former Mayor Rick Abel here this evening with us as well, who chairs the Recreation Advisory Board. And we also have Andrew Cheeky here this evening, who may or may not want to speak about the pool and the aging infrastructure within the pool. Andrew works for the Rec Department as well, our Parks and Rec Department. A little bit of background information. We do have an aging pool, over 40 years old. My understanding is that the current existing pool has a tear in the liner, which can cost anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. My understanding in meeting earlier today with Paula Horan-Mosley, our City Service Safety Director. We also have aging pump pipes, challenges and difficulties replacing the parts for those, and acknowledging too that what we're hoping with a new pool would be to make significant upgrades and improve quality of life aspects with a better pool. Again, a little bit of background information for those of you in TV world, and reminder for those of us up here behind the counter. We paid consultants Brandstetter and Carroll $25,000 for a study in which they conducted town hall meetings and held public forums. They offered some conceptual ideas and drawings. Again, those are just concepts. We don't have to be married to any one idea. They're theories or concepts, similar to when you go to an auto show and Ford or GM or Chevy are throwing out something elaborate or interesting or strange. They're just concept models. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make it to production. So these, again, are just concepts. Brandstetter and Carroll also helped conduct surveys to determine what public input and desires and priorities were from those of us in the community that participated in that process. So having gone through that process, the Recreation Advisory Board had many meetings and discussions considering and looking at all these issues, and then former Mayor Abel came to us, I believe, July 17th. That's our formal printout, and I believe Debbie Walker may have made this on the Google Drive. Is that correct, Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, so you should have a copy of this recommendation from the advisory board on the computer. So July 17th, the Recreation Advisory Board voted 4-0 to recommend to the administration and city council to proceed with design engineering of the outdoor city swimming pool. The board recommended a $7.3 million budget. Once construction is completed and a bond is secured, the capital cost of the new swimming pool would expend 58% of the estimated revenue. Revenue estimate will be provided by Kathy Hecht, our auditor. Former Mayor Abel says, I and members of the advisory board are available to discuss this recommendation with you. Sincerely, Richard Abel, Chairman of the Recreation Advisory Board. So we have this information. We sat on it for a little bit. I met last week with our City Service Safety Director, and then I met again today for more details. And I'll walk us through just this process again, and we can lean on the Mayor's Office for input as well on this, as well as former Mayor Abel and the Rec Advisory Board. So if moving forward we accept the Advisory Board's recommendation, that allows us then to proceed with obtaining a portion of the bond money, which helps us consider what we need to borrow. That then allows the administration to move forward with sending out RFQs, which are requests for qualifications. When they proceed with that process, they in turn can accept a dozen or more different firms that are offering proposals, offering qualifications. Then the likelihood would be that the administration would have an internal administrative team, which would then make a short list. So you have the RFQs and a dozen or so plus firms offering qualifications, and then that is shortened to a small list or short list of 3 firms or so. Then entering into presentations and to the internal review team, which would then allow us to look towards seeking proposals from the top candidates. That's my understanding of the baby steps that would take place to help us move forward. I think, too, many of us on council have received emails, and we've had people coming to meetings expressing concerns about what they would like to see happen with the pool situation, whether it's indoor or outdoor, a combination of the two. We also received another presentation from Brandstetter and Carroll, who went back to the drawing board and made some more drawings and input, offering the idea of what it would cost and/or look at for another indoor pool, smaller indoor pool with an outdoor component. And so many of us on council attended that. most recent meeting from Branstad or Carroll as part of their $25,000 study. I suggest and propose that we do move forward with these considerations, knowing that we have such an aging infrastructure, and I hate to throw money, taxpayer money, at something that is limping along and is not likely to be around much longer, the old pool. Again, I think as a community, we're very lucky to have the situation in which we have over 50% of the voters supported the levy to move forward with enhancing our recreation and arts parks community as a whole. Again, I think we're lucky to have a community that embraces that and to have this kind of discussion and to consider the needs of quality of life. So those are the few things that I wanted us to consider and look forward to and talk about. Former Mayor Abel, if you're accessible tonight, this evening, if people have questions for former Mayor Abel and the Recreation Advisory Board, or if you can think of something that I didn't acknowledge, or feel free to enhance the discussion. Thank you.
I think the only thing that I'd like to mention is the master plan that the advisory board, with the help of the city planner, have done over. I think we finished that last year, and well, actually in 2014, as we finished it. And a major component of that, through all the survey work and everything that we did, was that a lot of people rely on the swimming pool for not just recreation and everything, but also is a big part of their lives during the summers in Athens. And it's been around for not just the 40 years where it is there, where I remember Crystal Pool before that. So, and I think there was one before that, wasn't there, Andrew? No? Crystal was the first one? 1947, okay. 27. That one lasted a long time, too. But Bill Walker and I had the opportunity to tour the existing facility back in November with Rich and Andrew, and we observed that, you know, there was actual heaving and a portion of the pool that would really prevent a lot of access to the shallowest end, and also in the other area of what is the wading pool, or younger children's pool. A portion of that was closed off almost all season last year. The other thing that we do not know with the old pool is how long will the pumping system last. We've already blown it out a couple of times, but not in the pump room. It's always been out within the deck area, and you can see various levels of concrete as you walk around the pool, and of course kids don't usually walk, as we all know. But it needs serious work, and I would hate to see us, because I think your estimate was a little low, Kent. I mean, the quote we got, Andrew had in November, was around $150,000 just to do that, and we still don't know if we spent it, if we would be able to open, because we don't know the life of the cast iron piping is at its end. And you can demonstrate that by, you know, we saw within the stainless steel flange gutters that go around the pool and recycle everything, there's little flecks of iron in there, cast iron. And I asked him, well, how do you clean that out? And he said, well, the first thing one of the lifeguards does every day is take a big magnet, and we go down there and get as much of the cast iron as we can. That doesn't sound safe to me. So part of the reason of being here tonight and asking this to be on the agenda was that you just have to backtrack on those RFPs, and when you hire a final design person or a firm to do it, how many months is it going to take them to do that design and have the public meetings that we still need to have with them to finalize that design? And then when do we go to bid? And when do we let it go? This year would have been nice, because warmest December in ever, but we don't know what it's going to be like next year. But if we don't get this, I would say, my guess would be, if we're not ready to hire somebody by about around March 1st, we're in trouble, because it may go another season. That's just my thought.
Meaning, sir, that we would not be looking at a pool until 2017,
17.
right? And that's if our ducks are in a row.
If our ducks are in a row, because this is not a small project to do. I mean, you're talking 8% of capital cost probably is just going to go to the design engineering firm. Probably, for at least $500,000 probably. So it's not a small chunk of change or anything, but part of the thing that came out of that last public meeting when we bare bones the pool, people didn't like it. There wasn't enough lap lanes. There wasn't, other people were saying, gee, we lost the lazy river getting down to this price. And, so there was not total contentment, but there never is when we're discussing about how our kids and we are going to recreate anyway. So it's there. I'll be quiet and ask for questions.
Thank you.
Unless Andrew has something I misstated or you need to add.
Mr. Abel, thank you for all your work on this, because you've spent many hours working on this, and I don't know that the community understands how many hours you've put in, as well as the rest of the members on the board. To help clarify something, I think there's a lot of confusion in the community about, we have had so many plans thrown at us, and we've asked Branstetter and Carroll to come back with other ideas and all of that. What was it, 7.4 million? What did you say?
Correct, 7.3.
7.3 million. Can you help explain to the public what that means? Because you also mentioned the estimated revenue. We're talking about the levy we think will generate over 20 years a certain amount of money, and then where that 7.3, what that means, because I think there's some confusion in the community, what that amount of money would encompass and take care of.
Sure. Those are ballpark estimates based upon contractors' formulas. And what consultants do is they come in and say, well, if you're going to have so many square feet of concrete, well, then we're going to use the average for Ohio and southeastern Ohio, the cost of concrete, and boom, this is what it's going to cost. And same thing with pumping and same thing with piping and everything else. What we're hoping is that when you get into the design engineering, that hopefully the engineers can find some things, because we want to use the same site, that we already have the water there, the sewer there, the electricity and gas, all those things necessary to do it. And we also know that it's above the 100-year floodplain, so we don't have to build a new pad. So that's why that site is the preferred site from the advisory committee's standpoint. But even in that 7.4, that was, I think, one of the options that they had. There were things that the advisory committee did not like about that option, because it included taking out the front parking lot and moving the structure closer to the street. We wanted to keep the front parking lot to save money and put the bath facility back toward the back, and then build 130 or so parking spaces back behind there, which you don't have to elevate out of the floodplain, but know that you have a maintenance issue over time with it. We also wanted it to be able to have at least talk about solar from the standpoint like we did in the other areas of the parking areas for the community center, and also just the roof of the new bathhouse and such. But yeah, we want to have. It also didn't have. I think it had 3 or 4 lap lanes. We want at least 6, minimum, because we want areas to swim. But we also want a diving area, and we want the fun things that are there, because I think the community is, spoken and saying, we're willing to spend, 1% of our income, as we just did for the last 19 years, building a community center, building just as good as, a swimming pool for us. And what the consultants were asked to do also was to try to, at least as it's a brand new facility, at minimum break even, or hopefully make a little bit of money, so that we can build some more reserves up there. But we also, as when we look at the pool, it's the major cost item here, but there were a lot of things that we listed in that recommendation to you 2 years ago. And you made an ordinance up that said you wanted to improve accessibility at all parks, that you wanted more bike trails, that we just point out in maintenance alone, I believe the section of the bike path between Stimson Avenue and the remodeled wastewater treatment plant was put in by Mayor Beckett. And that was, let's see, well, it was at least 28 plus years ago. Well, 28 years ago, he went out of office. We've done some sealing to that, but we're probably going to have, in the next 20 years, that's going to have to get replaced. And so we have to look at a lot of those different issues like that. And it's the same thing with all of our shelter houses and everything else. So we felt that the 58%, somewhere in through there, would be a reasonable amount of money that we could devote to the pool. But obviously, it's up to council to make that decision. That's our recommendation.
And I think there's one other person that we need to bring into this conversation, which is the auditor and the bond counsel.
Oh, yeah, I've been with both of them.
And so the actual cost of a pool would be much less than 7.3 because we have to borrow the money to build the pool, and I don't know that the public understands that.
Okay.
Right. And, so we're going to have to borrow the money. So you're saying that the bond counsel and the interest and all that was built into this 7.3 number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very close into there because that's where it gets down to the lower estimate, and hopefully there are some savings there. But what the process that you're going to do is you aren't going to go out and do a bond and then build the pool. You're going to do bond anticipation notes, because that's what you did with, or what council has done with the community center and the law administration building, and I think the parking garage, and I think we paid it off. The last one, we never did issue bonds. Same thing on East State Street when we did that. We borrowed $7-8 million to build that, and gradually paid that off over about a 10-year period. So. And we're hoping that, that the interest rate won't be any higher than 4%. On the short-term bonds right now, that's much lower than that. And you can get that money fairly cheaply. But that's the challenge is going to be, I think the main focus is get your estimates with the auditors, which I've got an email from her saying we came to agreement on this, the handout that I gave you 6 months ago. And shoot for that 55% or so range of being it. So therefore we have money to do these other projects that we went in that ordinance and asked people to vote for.
So really tonight what we're discussing is going for the bond, asking for that in an ordinance. We're not talking about the pool design per se, because you have to put out the RFQs
right,
and all of that. Is that?
Yes. You have to follow what I'll leave it defer. I've been out of office 8 years. I don't know exactly what's there from the contracting standpoint of going for RFQs and RFPs and all that stuff.
Well, our hope was that we would be doing both.
Right.
And we talked with Council Clerk and Walker about how she would package that in terms of accepting this and moving forward with the bond financing at the same time authorizing the RFQ process so we can get going on this.
I want to make sure that people understand this is just for the outside, for an outside pool.
Yes.
Because that was something, and we still haven't really had that discussion except for that one public meeting that we had where they presented a notarium, and I think people are still confused about the pool versus the inside, and that it needs to be made clear that it's just an outside pool at this point, right?
I'm still confused, and I've been up here for all these meetings, because right now what we're talking about is RFQs with the amount of money that we are allowed to borrow, or the bond,
I didn't know that we had voted on a specific design.
Yeah.
And we haven't. We haven't.
Okay. So I think that's important. I mean, so I'm responding to her statement.
Sure. Member Cochran.
Well, I think the elephant in the room is the realization that for $7.3 million, not all of which can be spent on the actual building of the pool, because part of that will be the interest on a bond, we will not be able to get both an outdoor and an indoor pool, most likely. And that is what I have felt, I have been told by the community members, we want a year-round facility. And I realize, we've been over this and over this. But again, I don't feel comfortable with moving forward, spending this much money when we're not necessarily giving the community what they've told us they want. And yes, I realize we urgently need a new pool because, my kids pick up those flecks of cast iron from the gutters, and I see that it's falling apart. But I just am concerned about moving forward and not having another opportunity to get an indoor facility for another how many years. So, I wonder, can we go back to the drawing board, do another levy so that we can ask the voters for additional funding that would support the construction of both facilities or the joint facility?
But another levy would have to go in November this year, assuming that you get it on the ballot in time to be voted on. It'd be the November election, which may or may not pass, but assuming that it did, that still puts you into 2017.
Well, and if I may interject briefly too, and perhaps Mayor Abel can also acknowledge this from the city planner and the Recreation Advisory Board. This is something you and I had talked about on the phone over the weekend, which was the surveys that they conducted as well, which referenced the needs and desires from the community, in which only an outdoor pool was referenced in those initial.
Well, there was one thing that the planner's office, the city's planner's office did, was you take all of these data points from the standpoint of what does the community currently have. We have so many tennis courts, and where are they? Are they at the university, at the city, or at the school? And how do you say, do we have an overage or underage? The same thing was done with an indoor pool. And for a 20-some thousand population town, they're saying 1. Now, it's going to be, even if we would have built that indoor facility and devoted it to academics and the competitive swimming and everything else, there's going to be schedule problems no matter what. That's just, everybody usually wants to use the pool about the same time. And it's a constant scheduling marriage. But yes, that was an assumption that we made as an advisory board and with the advice of the planner that was necessary, not necessarily needed. And what most of the survey stuff came back, it wasn't there in any numbers to do it, because I think everybody was focusing on what the city was doing. And that's what was brought to council, and that's what we brought to the voters. And now that this has passed, people are now becoming more vocal and saying, "Oh, I want this," and I still think it was wise of council to the way, because if you remember in our original recommendation, we said you might want to put in there other approved projects by city council, and you struck it and said, no, we don't want to do that because we want just what's there for what the vote is. And I think the amendment was made that we could add buying property for recreational purposes to our original estimate. But that's how we got there through that process of our planning, and was some mistakes made or something?
And I think we're kind of in the crosshairs now, because now we've got an East State, later tonight we'll be discussing, which we have been discussing, the East State Street improvement project for traffic flow. We've now been thrown the farmers market issues, and we look at that campus
down there. We call it the Community Center Campus. It's not just for arts, parks, and recreation, and we've got all these other things happening in this very small 2-block period space. You know, a pool, a farmer's market, whatever. And, you know, in my mind, if we are next week voting on the bond issues so that we have money in place and we know what that dollar amount is, when you go out for your RFQs, you're able to say to whomever, this is the amount of money that we have to spend on a facility. Does it not work that way? I mean, I don't know. We've thrown this ball around back and forth about you have so much money to spend. Design us something kind of thing. So I don't know. And I think that was the question is, it keeps coming up. What will the ordinance look like next week? You know, we keep coming back to that in terms of, I'm hearing two things at one point, or are we just looking at the dollar amount to try to get that rolling?
Well, I think that you don't have to appropriate the dollar amount for the pool at this stage.
Right.
Because you haven't even bid it yet.
Right.
You know, to go to bid, you're going to need to.
Correct.
And when you get to that point, but you do need some estimate from the administration to say, it's going to cost us about so much money to do the final design engineering. That's the money that needs to be appropriated, and you have to authorize the auditor to borrow the money for it to do that. Because I would like to see, I mean, even the first year of it, and not all of the resources of the tax dollars coming in, which will probably start at the end of the month or so, and we don't do anything accessibility at any other park or any improvements at any place else, because that's not what we went to the voters for either. We ought to do something that's tangible that they can get for their tax dollars this year.
Absolutely.
Other than just planning.
Right.
Clarification, Clerk of Council has shared with me a draft ordinance that would be authorizing design engineering of the swimming pool.
And if we continue to hear that you're not going to authorize anything until you see a design, this goes nowhere. I mean, we've had a lot of time now. The voters approved that levy. Community members have come out with their wish list. We can only accommodate, and this request is ultimately for the replacement of the outdoor pool, of an outdoor pool.
Keep this in mind too, as I'm hoping that you have been thinking about this, but with everything that Brandsetter and Carroll has come forward with concept drawings from concept number 1 up to whatever number we're up to these days, is that the citizens have also spoken about wanting outdoor features. Some have come out and spoken about indoor features, whatever those features are. When you look at the dollar amount, and look what Brandsetter and Carroll has put forward in terms of cost, it's one or the other. So, it could be, one option would be an auditorium and no outdoor features because we can't afford it. Or the flip side is the outdoor pool and features and whatnot and no natatorium. It's like there is, we saw what Brandsetter and Carroll put forward, their compromise, or the way that they put something together was, as Andrew Schicky, I think appropriately pointed out, is subpar, subadequate, aquatic resources for the city at the cost. So we need to move forward with design engineering. We need to get the RFQs out there so we can look to see who's qualified and then start working through the RFPs. But at this point, we're not doing anything. My fear is, again, that we're going to be spending or having to appropriate monies to repair an aging, failing swimming pool, which again is taxpayer dollars for something that we patch it at a high price tag for 1 year and then demolish it and put in a new pool. That's not prudent with taxpayer dollars, and that's another big fear of mine. If we're holding this thing together with baling wire and 8-penny nails, likely duct tape, whatever. But again, that's throwing away taxpayer dollars.
Councilmember Fall and Councilmember Nisley, President Nisley.
I guess I'm seeing, okay, we discussed this on Monday, and however it goes forward and we start getting RFPs, that a pool will be available by May?
Oh, no, 2017.
Okay, so any way you look at it, is there's not going to be necessarily a pool available for this summer, because on one level, the pool as it stands right now is going to have money put into it. That's what you just said. Or I'm feeling rushed when I'm not understanding what the ultimate end date. We're now saying 2017 we'll have a pool if we start on Monday. But we're already looking, I mean, are we going to have a pool in the summer unless we spend $150,000?
Well, it's to be determined. You do all the pump priming, you load the pool up, see if it holds water. If it holds water, maybe 90%, we will have a swimming season. With restricted areas, as the former Mayor Abel indicated, that one section of what I call the baby pool is straight out and will remain offline.
Just to throw this out, would it make sense to don't skewer me please, to not have a pool, but if people see that we are building our pool, that might be a legitimate reason not to have a pool season, because we're building it and people see that we're building it and we still have Nelsonville pool. And that would give everybody more time.
We still have a pool in the county.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're saying, Member Fall, is spot on, is that if we're moving forward and we're building, then great. I think that is a positive turn in events. But if we don't do it soon, we could likely be looking at 2 years without a pool.
But does that mean we have to pass it Monday? I mean, I'm feeling kind of like people are saying we need to get these
first reading Monday.
Something that might be helpful for clarification in Branstetter Carroll's report, they refer to what Mr. Abel was saying, that by February 16 to begin design, June 15 of 16 to complete the design so that you can advertise for the bids by July 1, commence construction August of 16, so that's this coming summer, with completing construction by June of 17.
We'd even talked about abbreviating this season this summer, meaning closing, say, August 1, if we had everything in place by then, and a design.
I mean, I agree with the mayor about pouring money into a new liner or something if we're only going to rip it out. And that doesn't seem prudent. And it may be that, we can start building the pool earlier, and open it earlier the next year.
Well, and I'm just hoping and praying that Andrew Chicky can work his magic again this year and possibly keep things afloat. But he's been doing a great job for many years. But reality is reality.
Yeah.
We need to move forward with the RFQs and the RFPs and start planning, because again, Branstetter and Carroll has provided us concepts, and Member Butler, I think you threw it out there perfectly. It's like a concept car coming out of Detroit. This could meet the production line or it could not. Likely not. But whatever we're looking at these concepts, and without having, and we can look at these concepts forever and go nowhere. So we need to start getting the designing, getting it in play.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mayor Abel before take brief comments on this topic? Thank you, John.
Thanks a lot.
Mr. Swearingen? And again, I think, is there a limit on comments? Okay. So as a friendly reminder, there are limits on few comments this evening, but many of us will also make ourselves available for future discussion with you as well.
I would ask if council might consider putting that in abeyance for a few minutes, maybe stretch it to 5, since this is a rather important and long-lasting decision. Whether I can spit out everything that I believe needs to be said in 3 minutes. Last time I was here, the 3-minute poll.
We'll compromise for 4 minutes, but we have 3 other committee meetings and other persons who need to have business, so right. I feel that's
now, as a layperson, thank you. As a layperson, not a professional engineer, not a city council member or anything, I think it would be intelligent to authorize the bond money. We know, according to Mr. Abel, that all the city can afford without affecting its bond rating is approximately $7.2 million. You break that down to materials and labor and debt service at 2.5%, you get a $5.6 million pool, 2.5% interest. At 4%, you get approximately $5.1 million product, $5.1 million in labor and materials and fees and whatnot. Nobody has presented a $5 million natatorium yet, except for a company called ARCO, who I contacted last December, and was able to get a proposal from them, which I've submitted to council and to the mayor. We talked about this earlier today, the mayor, Paula Mosley, and myself and Michelle. At 5.1, and that particular pool and that particular presentation offers about 50, you'll have to check the numbers and read the presentation, the one that I added to ARCO's, something like 56% more water, 50-some-odd% more total square footage for the same dollar as what Branstad and Carroll has offered to date. So it meets the community needs with zero entry. It meets community needs for lap lanes, potentially competition pools. It meets the community need for physical therapy in its own separate environment, 4 or 5 degrees warmer, considerably more perimeter rooms, and then an option to go further if you wanted to put a mezzanine on and a viewing deck. There is more available through a different company. That's a design build firm versus a design bid build firm, which is what Branstad and Carroll is. Now, whatever the city can or cannot do with those two methods of procurement is none of my decision-making process. But that's what the difference is, a 36% inflation with Branstad and Carroll versus ARCO. And ARCO is just one of, they're the 27th biggest construction firm in the company. There are 26 others above them that could offer a proposal. Now, I personally don't have a problem with voting in favor of putting the money in process and in play. But if, as has been intimated here tonight, it is a question of either or, indoor or outdoor, and if we vote the money, if you vote the money in tonight, it's a commitment strictly to an outdoor pool, this is not what the public is expecting. They've been told all this week that this is a non-committal agreement, not indoor, not outdoor. To take this one step further, if the RFPs go out, the RFPs should include both indoor and outdoor, because people like ARCO, or companies like ARCO, have already proven, at least on paper, that they can beat hands down what has been presented to the city up to this point in time. Perhaps other companies can also beat hands down ARCO's proposal, and the city can indeed afford a natatorium that is a fully serving facility, as opposed to just a few lap lanes and no zero entry and no physical therapy for our aging public. So if the city decides to vote for the money, amen, great, get the money in play. But if the city, by doing that tonight, votes one or the other out, indoor in, or indoor out and outdoor in, it is not in the public's best interest in light of the opportunities that haven't been explored yet. And I'd be willing to bet you 9/10 of council members haven't even seen this proposal except for seeing that it's on their desk. So I would say if that vote tonight is excluding one and including the other, the city put this in abeyance until they can see what opportunities are out there. Branstad and Carroll has done work, but has it done the city a favor up to this point in time? Not from a perspective of maximum utility and maximum service to the community. They are not in a level of the industry that can provide a competitive product, whereas a company like ARCO and dozens of other companies are. And we haven't even relied upon those companies' input yet. We've relied solely upon Branstad and Carroll. That's our go-to guy, or our go-to team. We've eliminated many of our options by taking this pursuit. So I ask that the council put it in abeyance for now, if it's an either-or vote. If it's just putting the bond money in play, and the RFPs can include both indoor and outdoor, and let these people and these other companies provide their imagination and submit it to council, that's great. But if it excludes natatorium, we've tattooed the public.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, we won't be voting tonight. We're having discussion tonight, so lest people be alarmed.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Butler.
Yes, there was some more information here that Councilmember Pappy and I were looking at that has former Councilmember Patterson's name on it. But I wasn't sure what your comment was there.
Well, I think we were looking at some language for a possible ordinance. And as part of our discussion tonight, the language that is being discussed at this point says swimming pool. It does not say indoor or outdoor. It just says swimming pool.
And I might add that if you remember, the levy in and of itself says a swimming pool. So it's, this basically has to parallel what the levy read, because that's what the citizens of Athens voted for, is they voted for a pool.
So when I hear about RFQs and such, and those kind of things, or I hear administration saying it's for an outdoor pool, that's not what I'm voting for if this is the language that comes forward next week. It says a swimming pool.
Again, the recommendation from the Arts, Parks, and Rec Advisory Board, and I feel the administration, is indeed to replace the existing outdoor facility.
And I think that speaks to Member Cochran's concerns as to what, is that correct? I don't know.
Well, I think there's a difference in what is in our ordinance versus what comes out in an RFP. It's not in our ordinance that it's for an outdoor pool or an indoor pool, but there will be additional information in any RFP, correct?
The guidance has to come from us.
Right.
And the guidance is the request again is for a replacement of the existing outdoor pool in its area where it's located now.
That's the recommendation from the Recreation Board.
Correct.
That I support.
So obviously the devil will be in the details when we look at the language next week, and we can vote yay or nay and then have further discussion at that moment.
Are we proposing to expedite it and not have 3 readings?
No. I would wholeheartedly support and want 3 readings, so I would not.
Okay.
Yeah. President.
And we have solicited information from the bond council before, and they did take a fairly narrow or focused interpretation of what pool means. But I wonder if a question could be asked in light of the discussion tonight. If the ordinance calls for a pool, can the RFP, as Councilmember Cochran asks, be broader in definition to potentially include replacement of an outdoor pool with an indoor natatorium component to it? I don't know, and I don't know if the bond council can ask that. I'm asking, and I'm also respecting and echoing what I hear from administration. That administration is at this point recommending to council what the Recreation Advisory Committee is saying is just the replacement of the outdoor pool. Just a question.
I hear that it's just a question. That will not move us any closer to a design for the replacement of the outdoor pool. What I continue to hear, and maybe I'm mistaken,
if the ordinances move forward,
that there is, again, it's divided on council in terms of how they feel what the community members want, and during this time, the pool is continuing to degrade. So, existing pool. So, I ask again, where do the children play?
I think the conversation tonight is moving towards looking at the draft of the ordinance and looking at the language on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. We could discuss the pool ad nauseum.
And I'm not sure if there are any other comments from the public, any other public members here tonight.
Anyone else wishing?
Andrew.
Andrew.
My name is Andrew Chicky. I work at the Parks and Rec Department, Arts, Parks and Recreation. I spend a lot of time at the pool. I'm the assistant director. And I wasn't intending to speak tonight. Mostly I just wanted to sit and watch the show, but can't help myself. So I'll get in trouble later, I'm sure. I'd like to first say that ARCO or any other company, when it comes to doing RFP and RFQs, are welcome to put in for the bid process. The whole point of having Branstad Carroll was as a consulting firm, giving us some options and stuff. Just to clarify, We don't have to go with them when it comes to design or anything else. If somebody came in with a really great bid for something at a lower cost that meets all of our expectations, then of course we're going to entertain that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Brant Carroll is the go-to now. I would like to encourage you again that if you have a chance and you would like to, my door is always open. Rich's door is always open if you have additional questions or concerns related to our current pool or future pool. We've got tons and tons of paperwork. I've got a lot of it here, and I do not wish to go into all of it tonight again. But if you need any materials at all to help you in your decision-making process, I'm here for you to help you make those decisions in an informed, intelligent way. I said I don't want to prolong the conversation any longer tonight, but the reality is our current pool is at the end of its life, and the concerns are more than just the liner and those kinds of things. There are some things that we are going to have to do if we decide to open it that's going to have an immediate cost. We might figure out a way to patch those holes. Renesys, the company that originally installed the liner, said there's no way that they'd come in and patch it. It's so far beyond its lifespan. There's no way they're going to do that. It's a huge liability for them. On the other side of it, down the pump room, which is not a sexy place, it's a disgusting, dirty, smelly place. We have filters, and the filters have to run properly for the state to allow us to even have a pool. And those are in very, very bad shape. So we'd be looking at minimum, $20,000, $30,000 to get some of those items to a level that's not including doing, annual maintenance, concrete work, all that stuff, That's I won't get into all the details on that. But I just wanted to reiterate that Brant Carroll was a consulting portion of that. Part of the process is, saying the information that they had is good information as far as their numbers and that kind of thing. Now, if you aren't interested in, the Rec Advisory Board's recommendation, that is a different conversation. But the information in there, in my opinion, from looking at it, and I've poured over this stuff front and back, would be that Brant Carroll's numbers are pretty darn close to what you would expect. So take that for what it is. But I would highly encourage you, if you have any more questions, I have a ton of information that I'd love to share with you. And I love talking about the pool. I like talking about the new pool more than the old pool. So I'm here for you. So if you have any questions at all, I can definitely direct you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And any questions or comments? Thank you. I'd also acknowledge that our chairperson of the Recreation Advisory Board, former Mayor Abel, had been tackling this and supporting it from an administrative perspective back in 2006. This was something that first began a long time ago with the old Recreation Advisory Board, and many people put a lot of hours and time into that effort as well to begin for the city to look at and consider what the community's needs are with a pool.
We paid for a consulting report at that point, too.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know how much that one was.
Yeah, I'm not sure as well at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on with our agenda to salt water softening. Completely different realm. So in speaking earlier today with the City Service Safety Director as well as our city engineer, Andy Stone, we are dealing with our annual purchase, approximately $200,000 from the Water Fund, 740.637, transaction class 200. And again, this is to add salt for the water softening process, which is following the EPA guidelines and does simple things as simple as just helping make our water naturally sudsy for laundry purposes. But again, this is a basic yearly expenditure. Any questions or comments on that?
I think having softer water helps people's pipes too. Mm-hmm. And provides long-term maintenance for city and personal infrastructure, besides sudsy things.
Yeah. Moving on then to the depot lift station. And I may lean on the administration as well on this because our engineer is estimating that there will likely be an anticipated increase in cost to fix the depot lift station. Initially, we were looking at, I believe, $835,000 was the original cost, and some of this is covered by the CDGB funds and other money, but bids came in too high approximately a week or so before Christmas, and we're hoping to rebid. Anything else from the administration on that? Does that sound accurate?
It does.
Okay.
Question.
So we've already.
How much did it come up over?
What they call throwing a bid.
They threw the bid. It was unrealistic and.
Okay, so right, all right.
Like over $1 million.
And right now, we, with design and engineering, we had it at
About 800,000.
Yeah, about 800. I think 640 or something was the engineer's estimate for the project. Tweaking that, talked about purchasing some equipment, the screens, and even the bypass pumps. And removing that from the bid process. So we should know before Monday if we can change in that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a possibility that we may have to look for other sources of funding for this to make up any difference? I recall this sort of happened with Richland Avenue. Remember, it was estimated at a certain price, and they threw the bids. Same thing happened there, and we had to go back and modify what we wanted done, and the length of time that had to be done, the amount of money that we had to put up, which was more. We had to find other funding, and Andy was very good at finding it. So.
That's the reason why this is being brought forward tonight, and I assume it would come from sewer or sewer debt, but that's a conversation that we need to have once he's identified what he anticipates the cost to be. So.
But the money is there. Please start purchasing the mechanicals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, the pumps, and that takes it off of the bid process, and so therefore, the intent then is getting realistic bids coming in for the rest of the work on the lift station itself.
Right.
And the number that the city service safety director referenced was from the sewer fund, and that was the $460,000 of what you referenced there. And you're suggesting that amount will likely have to come up a little bit.
Perhaps. That's what we're waiting to get back from the engineers.
Thank you. Under miscellaneous, just a couple acknowledgments that the rec center will be closed this Sunday. The rec center will be closed for the installation of the new generator, which is a backup, correct me if I'm wrong, gas-powered generator for emergency situations. However, the recreation center will be open on Monday during the holiday, and that will be regular hours of operation, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Additional miscellaneous is a reminder that we might be experiencing some snowfall, and everyone is encouraged out there to take care of your sidewalks, to make sure that they're safe and accessible, so please shovel your sidewalks. Trash and recycling will be on a one-day delay because of the holiday as well. And I believe one last miscellaneous that was a request or discussion perhaps with the administration, which can happen as well at another time too, but acknowledgement that issues or concerns with restrooms on Richland Avenue, is that correct? Okay, and is hoping that they're more accessible during certain times of the year.
May I have just a moment?
Sure. 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll try to keep it to 2.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Mike Michelle. I live on Blue Ridge Road, and I take my granddaughters to Richland Avenue Park on warm, sunny days. The restrooms at the park are closed on Halloween. I don't really know why that day is picked, but I assume that it's because there's colder weather afterwards. My little girls don't have any place to go to the bathroom on warm, sunny days after Halloween. Neither do I. We have to pack them up in the car, take them down to McDonald's, or take them back home. Is there at least some way long-term that we can winterize those restrooms so that they can be accessible all year round? midterm, perhaps on weeks when it's warmer and not going to freeze, to open the restrooms back up. And short term, at least get us a couple of porta-johns out there that we can use on these warm sunny days, so I don't have to take my little girls out of the park when they decide right after we get there that it's time to go.
And thank you.
And I've tried different emails and phone calls with the administration, really haven't gotten anywhere in the last couple of months. So I was really here to talk about the Lurie Road annexation, but I appreciate the opportunity to bring this to the council's concern, and whatever committee or advisory board would want to look at this, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for visiting our park.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Thank you. And I believe if there's no other miscellaneous from the administration, that wraps up the City Service Safety.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Butler. We'll now move on to Finance and Personnel Committee with Councilmember Reisner chairing.
Thank you, Madam President. Finance and Personnel Committee, we have a few things on the agenda, and we'll try to get through them. First on deck is our quarter report from our treasurer, Mary Ann McClure. I believe she is at the table, and if she would like to present her quarterly report, we're more than willing to listen to it.
I actually have two.
Okay.
Third quarter one is complete, if you'll take one, with the 3 months bank reconciliations, and the fourth quarter is just the interest rates. The one number that's not on your page, which I apologize for neglecting before I copied, is the 2015 projections, which were $113,490 for total interest income for the year 2015. You'll see on the single page that our final total is $53,599.94. So we came quite a bit short in projections. Several reasons for that. One, of course, is the unchanging interest rate, which the Federal Reserve has just changed in a very small amount, which will move up a little bit. Another part of that was I had a 5-year CD at Chase that had a higher rate that expired, so we had to go to a lower rate there. And some of the other investments that I started early in the year did not start bearing fruit in terms of reaching the end of their cycle, the bonds that we've invested in, until the fall quarter. So things should be better in 2016. It's still an unknown issue what the Federal Reserve will do and how that will impact us. On one hand, we don't want it to go up too much because we'd like for the interest rate to stay low for the pool. But on the other hand, we're not earning much either. But I'm working with an investment firm to increase that a little bit.
With the monies that you deposit, you try to keep it as local as possible?
I use three, Chase is an international
It is,
national
but
bank.
nonetheless.
We've been invested at Chase before they became Chase. They were Athens National and then First, whatever the names were
Bank
along
One.
the way. But yeah, Hocking Valley Bank and People's, which is regional, also have some money at Star, Ohio, which is a state fund. And the U.S. Bank fund is run by a Red Tree Investment Group, and they do invest in a lot of state municipals as well in Ohio. So I can give you a list if you're interested at some other point in time.
No, this is fine right now. It's good to know that the money is still local and is being reinvested. The monies that we put into into the local economy, into our local depositories, that will be used in other loans and housing and so on. So it gets circulated through the community, and then of course eventually back to us again.
Absolutely.
So it's a win-win. It helps everybody.
Yep, that's my goal.
So anyone have any questions for the treasurer?
I was just
Madam President?
so we're significantly below in our interest this year, and this is lower, a lot lower than last year where we ended.
Well, the projection was based on 2014, and we actually came in a little under that. We were close to 100,000, but there was a significant change in as I said, the interest rates were lower, and some of the longer-term CDs I had expired, and as I renewed them, I had to renew at lower rates.
Okay. Thank you.
So if nobody has any questions on that, you want me to go ahead and move on to the depository agreements?
Yeah, that's next on the list, public depositories.
Okay. Every 5 years, the city needs to renew its depository agreements with the banks that do hold our money. And this is another cycle. We have to renew them by March 1st. And it's a 3-step process. First, I need to be authorized to request bids from the banks, and then we approve that. And then there's an agreement signed between the City of Athens and each of the banks that agrees to hold our money. And the reason that we have to do this is, as you all know, the FDIC only supports $250,000 per bank. So for us, and our deposits are substantially more than that in each bank, we have collateral agreements where they have to supply it's either 0.2 or 0.3%. They have to have that much money available compared to the money that we have invested there. So some of the smaller banks can't really afford to have very much of our money. But the larger ones are usually fine. We don't have any trouble with the collateral agreements. And I get quarterly reports from them to review. But the limit we have had up so far is up to $10 million at any one bank. It's unusual for us to exceed 5 at any one bank.
So on Monday, I believe we'll introduce 2 resolutions to get the ball rolling. And if I understand, since we're approaching the March 1st deadline, we're going to have to probably suspend. These are 3 reading resolutions normally, I believe. But
yes.
To get it going,
yes.
We'll have to suspend the rules for Monday to get these first 2 through.
Right, and then as soon as I have a copy of that, if you're willing to do that Monday, then I'll send out the letters immediately and to request a response back by 1st of February, so then I can bring those to council for approval.
Okay, then we'll bring the last resolution forward and pass it. So every 5 years we have to do this.
Every 5 years.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on that? This is all new to me. This is the first cycle I've seen. So.
And I do have copies with me if anybody wants to see them. And Lisa Eliason has been brought into the process as well. It's first time for her, but she's reviewed everything, and now we're good to go.
I think I have them here, so if anyone care to look at them, we can make more copies of them. Have we beat that topic to death?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we have something on personnel. Municipal court, this is the first time I've seen this come forward. And for the first time, we have someone to speak on this who is a sitting judge of the municipal court. And I believe Judge Grace is sitting in the back row. If you would like to come up.
Yeah, I'm mostly here to answer questions and make sure everyone knows what I'm trying to do. And,
well, that's why we have committee meetings. So.
yes. And I have information that might be a little bit inaccessible. It's on my phone if I need to answer any questions for that. So there were 2 things that I looked at when I came into office that would require expansion of the current budget. And one is I looked at the pay rates of each of the employees that are in municipal court and compared them to city employees in Athens, and then compared them to other clerks. It was mostly clerks is what I was addressing, in other similar size, similar situated cities around the state of Ohio. And what was clear was that we have 5 employees that are making between $13 and $14 an hour, and they are well below the norms for people in these positions, both around our city and also around the state. What I would want to do with those employees is bring them up to a $15 per hour rate, and that's going to be the bulk of what's going to be an increase is doing those. While I was doing that, I looked at the rest of the employees, and some of them, for the experience that they have, the number of years that they've been there, I determined they'd also been undercompensated for what they're doing. And so I looked at raising each of those to whole numbers, basically, to try to get them into a little bit more competitive range. I still think they're underpaid, even with what I'm looking to increase, but this is what I thought was reasonable to do at this point in time. And so that would require expansion of the budget from what had been submitted in the 2015 in December.
And what we have adopted is that's now part of our ordinance for the budgetary year this year.
Right, which was done, of course, before I was in office. But I did speak with former Mayor Paul Weil about what I was looking to do, and he said it's a living document. Wait until you're there, and then we'll have to, or you'll have to address it. So that, I think it does amount to about $30,000 a year to do the raises because I have so many employees. And by the time I raise, the bulk of it really is for those employees that are making roughly $13.31 for several of the employees. And for the work they're doing, they deserve more. So I wanted to increase those. The other item is I need to add a new position. I want to create a diversion program. We currently have one diversion program. It handles underage consumption and allied offenses. And that is all that's eligible for diversion in the municipal court. There are several reasons for this, but I think the best way of explaining it is at common pleas where people are charged with felonies, which are by definition the more serious offenses. There is a diversion program that nonviolent first offenders are eligible to go into this program, and a very large percentage of them do. And when they go into a diversion program, the goal is to divert them away from criminal behavior. If they complete it successfully, and most do, then their case gets dismissed, and it can be sealed, which means that there's no record on the official documents that has to be part of their conversation when they're applying for jobs later on. We have a very young population that get into a little bit of trouble, hopefully just once, and we want to make it possible so that they are not going to have to suffer with their careers later on. So an example of this would be theft. If you're over $1,000 is a felony. Right now, somebody who commits a theft over $1,000 is eligible for a diversion program. Pretty much universally is getting into a diversion program. Their cases are going away. We don't have that program in municipal court. So if you're charged for less than $1,000, you get a conviction for a theft offense, which is a crime of dishonesty, which can then impact jobs for basically everyone.
So I'm better off going for.
Yeah, if you're going to steal something.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
I don't recommend that, by the way.
I'm a little confused here.
Well, I don't think it's equitable. I don't think it's the right way for things to be. This program, I think I would need to pay somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $40,000 for an employee that would meet the qualifications. And if I can get an employee that is more qualified, that can help to create a program that's going to have really strong educational components and work with the community to develop this program so it gets the best of our educational programs in the entire county involved, I'd be willing to pay a little bit more to get the right employee for that. Now, I haven't put it out to bid. I haven't advertised, obviously, because I don't have any money for it. Good news is this. Long term, I expect this program, at least primarily, to pay for itself. I'm going to have a diversion fee that they'll pay. I have to ask for the budget to be increased to cover the expenses because there will be no money there until there are people going through the program, and there can't be people going through the program until there is somebody to direct the program. So with the benefits and everything else that we involved, it actually ends up being pretty high. Every one of you knows that. But so what I need to request is somewhere $60,000 to $70,000 to be added to the budget for that. Long term, I really don't think it's going to cost the city very much at all. So those are the issues. I have numbers if anybody needs any of those numbers, and I can answer any questions if that would be helpful.
With the diversion program, you're also looking at reduced course costs and such because you're diverting some of the people out. Is that true, or?
Well, they have to keep coming back to court a little bit because of the way that it works. It will save some man hours, but I'm not sure that you'll see that in any meaningful way. I don't want to sell it to you on a...
Right. But, it would help to reduce the traffic through court and stuff for more service.
There are many different types of diversion that I can develop, and one of them would actually be for driving or suspension cases, and I have some draft language that I've been working on that I'm pulling from other jurisdictions that run these programs. And so for driving or suspension, the goal is to get them their license back. They have to take the goal, the initiative, they have to go out and pay the reinstatement fees, get retested, but the goal is to get them driving legally. And we spend a lot of time in municipal court setting them for hearings, bringing them back time and time again. And the diversion program, if we can put that on the shoulders not of the judge, not of the bailiff and the staff that are in the courtroom, but put it instead on a diversion coordinator to monitor them, that will save some work hours, but it won't be a direct savings in cost, unfortunately. But they'll be paying for that service too, so that might actually be a savings that you could see.
So it's for the public good.
Well, I really do think it is, yes.
Couple questions I have.
Go ahead.
So going back to the staffing, and you understand that right now in the personnel department, we're doing this overview of folks, right? Did you know about that?
The overview of folks.
You're talking about
Overview of salaries and
The technical term.
the technical term. Maybe you guys can
It's the Clemens and Nelson
administration.
assessment that you're referring
Yes,
to
the
in terms of what different employees are getting paid, whether they're getting paid enough or whether they're being overpaid, and what band you fall into.
And I'm not, because municipal court's a little bit different. And by the way that the funding works on this, it's actually set by the clerk with my advice involved.
Right.
And she did not ask for any raise on her salary. So Pam's, I left with just her 2% raise. So the only thing that I'm proposing and that she's recommending with me would be for the deputy clerks to have an increase. I don't think they fit in the bands. Everything I saw had them just as a separate category. They didn't seem to be fitting into the bands of what they would be expected to make throughout their term of employment. And I think that's because of the nature of being a municipal court as compared to a true city.
Consultants would have experience with that, no?
The issue at hand here is that the judge has the authority to establish compensation for his employees outside of city council.
But do our consultants have experience working with municipal courts in this area, or?
We have not asked that question because they're outside our jurisdiction in terms of administrative.
Got it.
Councilmember, guy with the beard down there.
Judge, I just wondered whether you had considered consulting with a university as well, since they had their judiciaries program, and a lot of people feel there's kind of a double jeopardy kind of system going on where their students who are going through the municipal court are penalized as well through the court as through the system. If you're doing a diversion program, it would seem that possibly, just possibly, you could get somebody from the university community to figure out what would work for a student offender for both systems.
It is possible that there could be some collaboration, but they are really two separate systems. And the experience working with judiciaries in my former life as a private practitioner is that they view them completely separately as well. The judiciaries program does not care whether it's dismissed, sealed. If they have a complaint, they're going to proceed on it, and they don't really, they just don't care what the outcome is in court. Now, that being said, they have some resources, and if they're willing to work together to make sure that those resources are available to the diversion coordinator, we'd be happy to engage in that kind of conversation. It doesn't need to be somebody through the university. It needs to be somebody through the court.
I'm just mentioning that partially, since we had our first topic this evening was the memorandum of understanding between the university and the city, and if we're making efforts to coordinate things, that would certainly be something that you as a judge might want to consider as a possibility. And again, it's just a suggestion.
I'll take a look at it. Right. Any other questions about the increases I'm wanting to put in place in the new position I wanted to?
Well, you're familiar with your own budget. Do you feel that the monies are there?
The money, I think, is there, and especially with the expected increase in revenue for the diversion program. It'll take a little bit of time, but I spent significant time speaking with our county prosecutor about his diversion program, and it pays for itself. He has significantly fewer cases going through his than I would expect going through ours because of the volume of the two different courts.
And how about your pay raises for your deputies?
I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not used to looking at these budgets with the mindset of how that really plays out. But as I look at the budget, there's enough money there. Looks like the court revenue is 1.2, a little bit over that, and the last expense I saw was 1.1 or maybe close to 1.2. So there was enough.
I believe last time I looked at it too, it's healthy that there's money there. I also want to say, I want to go back to Branson and Carroll. Not Branson. No, let's not go there. Not there. Sorry, Clemens and Nelson.
See all our eyes.
You can tell where my head's at these days. It sounds like Judge Grace has really kind of done the homework that Clemens and Nelson would have done as well anyway, and looking to see what is parity when you're looking at other
I did confirm this
municipalities.
also with the city auditor. They acknowledged that they knew that the employees at municipal court were making less than comparable employees around the city.
I think in terms of the diversion programs, they are working in other communities, so it's not like you're reinventing the wheel here.
No, and I have not tried to either.
Right.
I've tried to pull from every resource available to get the best diversion program, not just try to make one that I could make up myself.
So what's your timeline on this?
I would like to request that the raises go retroactive to the first of the year when I took office. Most of this, by the way, I could do by caveat, but I wanted to tell you because I know what the budget is. And I wanted it to be a fresh start when I took over.
Right. Well, our normal procedure is go through the 3 reading, which would take about 6 weeks.
So my request on the raises is to make it retroactive to the first of the year. I'd like to do that because for my employees, I really think they've been underpaid for many years. And we have employees that have been there for 3 years. They started in 2012. They're still making $13.31 an hour, and they deserve more. And I understand how it happened the way that it did to get to the point where they are now, but they're being paid significantly less for the job that they're doing than people that are doing the same work. As far as the diversion program, I would like to go ahead and get started with the process of trying to find someone to run the program. I have some paperwork and just language I need to develop. That'll take a little bit of time too, as well as the hiring process.
Was the slot already there in your organization, like an unfilled position, or are you going to have to create a whole new position?
It would be a new position.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any unfilled positions, and I really don't want this to be part of the clerk's office anyway, which is where most of my positions are. This would be almost like a deputy bailiff.
So they would report directly to you?
They would report to me and then would run that program, and would be long-term, like I said, paying for the position is my goal, but I expect that to take a little while.
An ordinance isn't required to create a position, is it? No. I didn't think so. No.
I don't think so, but I just want to make sure
It's the money.
I'm very new to this part of this. Sitting in the court is easy for me. How to make these things happen. I know what I want to have happen, but how to make it happen is something I've not really dealt with yet. So I want to come and talk with each of you and explain why I want to do this so that you understand that it is really for the community, and I think that it is better for our court, but also for everyone that's dealing with the system to have this option. Keeping in mind, it's for nonviolent first offenders. They come back a second time, they're not being given this option. They're in there for an assault charge, domestic violence, they don't get this option. This also does not include DUIs. They're not going to be given this option either.
I have one more. I appreciate you coming and being straightforward about your personnel issues.
Thank you.
And also the retroactive pay. Obviously, this past year we dealt with that, and it was a very difficult issue to deal with. I don't know how I feel about retroactive pay. I hear what you're saying. Personally, I think if you get a raise, it starts when you get the raise. That's kind of how I feel about it. And you've had some time to come in and see what your needs are for your staff, but the fact of the retroactive piece, I'm not necessarily in agreement with.
And I understand that. I think that it is the right thing to do. I couldn't do anything before the first of the year.
I understand that.
And so I didn't try to force this through with Judge Grimm. I wanted to take a look at all the information.
Right.
And this was the first committee meeting.
Right.
So I came to this one to tell you what I wanted to
So
do.
I appreciate that.
But if it's not something that the money is there, I'm not going to force that part of it. But I think it's the right thing to do.
For the percentage for the increase that Judge Grace is talking about, even going back, we're at this point in time, we're talking a week back, and I get it, it would be 6+ weeks retroactive, but, it's going to have to be appropriated out of the unappropriated balance at this point moving forward.
You're aware of your budget, but
I am.
Yeah.
Very much so. And then as far as moving forward with hiring, you said it doesn't need a resolution, so is the money available for me to move forward with the hiring? That's what I was, okay.
That's your budget,
That's what the mayor's indicating. If there's a need to have increase from its unappropriated balance, that would be the ordinance that would be coming forward.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
That language helps me because that's not part of what I'm. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your Honor.
Titles are important around here.
Yeah, you got this next one.
Council member.
Yeah, remember that.
Oh, guy with beard? Yeah. Community Center Energy Improvements, note renewal. I don't have any paperwork in front of me about that, but I'm willing to listen to someone.
I'm willing to talk to you.
Okay.
The auditor has recommended $35,000 on what is $70,000 left on that particular note renewal. But something to be cognizant of is the fact that the cash flow at this point in time for the community center is a concern. So, but that's what we're looking at. Is $70,000 left on that note, and the recommendation again from the auditor was $35,000.
Now, last year we did pay $70,000, and was kind of hoping that we could pay the whole thing off this year. If we did $70,000 last year, why can't we do it this year? But as you say, revenues are down, and it's best to be conservative on this. There's no real reason to pay it all off at one time. So. So 35,000 is good with you guys. I don't see why we can't do it. Any questions on that? Anybody? Just paying down debt. Miscellaneous. I don't have any. Does anybody in finance personnel other than myself?
Okay, we'll move on then. Planning and Development Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Fall.
Great, thank you. First order of business is starting the long process of the annexation of Lurid Road. Lurid Road property. I did send out a little helpful cheat sheet on this one type of annexation. There are 4 or 5 different types, but it kind of goes through the same processes, and we're at the beginning. And some of you probably remember that this came up last year, and one of the first processes that you go through is the city council passes a resolution of giving services, providing services for the property that will be annexed. And we passed that last year, and Mayor Weil vetoed it, and so now it's coming forward. The reason that Mayor Weil vetoed was because LEAX, they were going to be allowed to keep the LEAX water, because LEAX was going to charge them a huge amount to be released from their water system, and that didn't sit well with city policy that Paul was looking at. So what the powers that be and all the various parties of this got together to develop a LEAX water agreement. And I sent that out via email. And basically, this has come up before, and to tell you the truth, LEAX likes to keep their customers because that's their sole aim in life, is to provide water. And sometimes I think they'd love to keep customers, even though it may not be for the best benefit of the customers themselves. This particular piece of property doesn't really have water quite yet, so they're now looking at, they were being picky about keeping future customers. So what the city administration and the people who are proposing the development I have developed a LEAX water agreement. And this, I think, is really good. And one thing that Andy Stone, when he presented this, would like this to be maybe seen as a model for the future, too, because this comes up a bit. We've had this issue before, and it's never been very nicely settled. So basically, LEAX has agreed with the developer and the city to do certain types of fees and sharing of revenue for a set amount of time for this contract. When you go and put a water system in, you pay fees to the city called capacity fees. What the developer and LEAX have arranged for is that the developer would pay LEAX a $35,000 in lieu of actually developing with LEAX water to LEAX. That's the developer paying directly to LEAX. The city has no responsibility for that, no matter what. Then the city agrees to provide water for this particular development. Like any other development, the developer will pay for all infrastructure on that development piece of property. And because after the release fee of $35,000, LEAX wants a certain amount of money because they're not getting that water charges. So what Athens and LEAX is going to do is Athens is going to charge twice the amount of money that you usually charge for an in-city piece of property to that property. And then one half of it goes to LEAX, one half of the fee goes to Athens. So Athens is not losing any money there. We're charging it for like the normal city. The developer is not really losing any money because LEAX's water rates are pretty much twice the amount of Athens' water rates anyway. So if they were way out in nowhere out in the county and they were doing this, LEAX is twice the amount of Athens city water per unit charged. The city water in Athens is a deal. This is only for this piece of property. If it's not developed within 5 years, the contract goes out, and once the development starts and is completed, this agreement will last for 15 years. So the longest this agreement will last is 20 years. It can't be renewed or organized, talked about. I'm drawing a line there. So this is that's why it would be a model. Later, we can use it as a model. So this will be amended to the resolution to provide for the services that we would give this piece of property that's out on Lurig Road. This process is a long process. I know somebody's here to talk about the process. This piece of property and any development that will go on with it will also go through all the other annexation steps. And it will also go through a PUD, planned unit development process, because it is being looked at as a planned unit development. So it will go through several council steps: public hearings, public meetings, planning commission, and planning commission hearings about zoning and such. Hi, Rusty. He's happy to hear that. So Rusty Wittenhouse is the lawyer for this, and would you like to? And any questions? I hope that was explained.
You explained that really well.
Yes, and I did look at the bottom because I was like, well, who approved this? And it was signed off by the board of LEAX. I see their signatures here. Yep. And then city people, I assume, or is this just the LEAX right here?
Yeah, that's the LEAX. The city has not, we wanted to bring it forward.
We don't have authority.
And personally, from some of the negotiations that we've had with LEAX, with this other last year, they were asking for a lot more for release fees. So LEAX was. And so this, I think, is a good compromise with the developer, LEAX, and Athens. So, it's not costing us really anything. It's more between the developer and LEAX. Rusty?
Very good. I think it might have been the property owners who signed off on that. Those might be the other signature. So is it Hope?
Yeah.
That was a great summarization. I don't know if I can top that, so thank you very much. I represent the developer, GBG Development, and I'm also helping out the sellers, which is the Hope family. When we last attempted to do this back in, I think it might have been July or September, the hiccup was this issue with LEAX, and you have to obtain a release from LEAX in order for the city to provide water to it, and that was the problem. LEAX wanted a large sum of money for their release, and the property owners simply couldn't come up with that type of money. So this was the compromise that was reached. I wasn't involved in negotiations and have only recently received a copy of the agreement, but it looks like a pretty good deal. If this is approved, we'll go through with it's called a Type 2 or an expedited Type 2 annexation. It'll follow the same path that we did in the brewery over on Armitage Road. What was it called? Little Fish? Something along those lines. It's a long process, even though it's called an expedited. It takes about 5 or 6 months. For that reason, I would ask if you could waive the 3 readings on this, and that would help the ball rolling on getting the annexation started. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of other moving parts, including the commissioners, the trustees, the zoning. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So this would help the ball get rolling again, and there's been a 3 or 4 month delay already. So if anyone has any questions about the annexation project.
Yeah, we're trying to we need a resolution. That's a 3-reading resolution for providing services. Could we attach this to the resolution?
Well, I think this has to be done first, the ordinance for LEAX.
Okay. We can't just, can they go at the same time?
If you want to, I'm on anything you want to do.
At the hearing,
I haven't even filed the petition. I was waiting on your approval on this.
We've got to go through the process.
I have a question. Is there any precedent for charging residents different rates in the city? From what I understand, you were talking about if annexed, that they'd be paying double the rate the residents.
There's
the property owners.
There's out of city rates that are applied to that when council changed the policy, maybe 2008, that changed the policy to be that if you're annexing, you have to have both services. So these are kind of grandfathered events. So there's like a 20% higher rate. And if I could just kind of flip the way Member Fall presented it.
Right.
Under this agreement, those residents just in this property, as identified, will be paying the LEAX rate with the 50% split or division after that. So.
Well, I do understand that, but I'm a little concerned about 2 things. One is whether there's precedent for it, for charging citizens different rates in the city, even if it's for a special thing like this. But then I'm also concerned a little bit about the legality of it. 5 years down the road, if somebody decides, why am I paying twice the rate for city water? I wasn't part of this agreement saying somebody's bought it, whether the city is just buying it into a lawsuit. So one thing I would like to know is there precedent, and maybe we should try to head off some lawsuits,
Let me share. I mean, if let's just say we opt not to go forward with this, under this model, it will still be LEAX water, and so someone will still be paying LEAX rates, and they'll be in the city.
I understand all that. Yeah. I just said from the precedent of saying to citizens of Athens that you who live here will pay this much for a water rate, and you will pay twice as much, even though there's a valid reason for it, and there's a good reason for it. I mean, best intentions sometimes get you involved in lawsuits. So.
Well, this does have a sunset to it as well. After at the end of 15 years, it reverts back to Athens city rates.
I'm just concerned, again, simply from the perspective of, is it legal? I mean, and I don't know.
Well, Andy showed Lisa.
The law directors reviewed it, as well as the LEAX board's attorney,
Was that
Frank
question
Lavelle.
raised by her, or?
No, the only thing that we stated, and we talked about it in our meeting, was it's more back on the developer to, as he goes to sell his properties, how we would like those potential purchasers to understand that they're going to be paying at a higher rate.
Yeah, I would think that would have to be upfront. I mean, that's part of your upfront, you know. So
I would contend it would be more on the developer in terms of that
well, and
statement.
I think of the large development across the road from this possible annexation and all the issues that the city went through regarding that developer and his promises, whatever, to the community, to the city at the time when all of that was annexed, and look what happened with the roads and everything else we had to do there. So I think this is a good question to ask at this point, because there are, I mean...
That was also part of the PUD that was not very well negotiated, too. And that, for the university estates, I think some of that it was on more of the other end of it wasn't annexation per se, it was also the development, the PUD, plan unit development process, and such. I mean, you would want every developer who is selling property to always tell people, due diligence for the developer and the person who's...
So just so we're clear, for this to be annexed into the city, we're saying LEAX would provide the water service, but if it...
No.
We're providing the water service,
We're charging them rate.
but we're charging that additional rate because of the loss of service that LEAX would entail because of the annexation of the land. And then, of course, with annexation, we also provide water, sewer, police, fire, whatever else, street repair. And again, we would want to make sure...
After roadways are accepted, improved, and through a bond period, yes, right.
Okay, but that's going outside the box for tonight.
I just want to make a comment. I'm not crazy about the idea of suspending the rules and make this a single reading. I don't see any necessity for that. I mean, yes, I know it's a 6-month process,
right.
yeah, but I don't see an emergency here or a public crisis that really justifies suspending the rules on something that should get 3 readings.
Well, my question is, does this need to be an ordinance or whether it can be attached to a resolution? It has to be an ordinance? Okay. Okay, so I'm also, why can't, something maybe that the law director needs to be asked is whether we can put the resolution and LEAX ordinance going forward at the same time. So.
Well, the ordinance would have to be passed before we could have the resolution. And the resolution, well, okay, the ordinance, I'm insisting get 3 readings. So that'd be 6 weeks. After that, then the resolution would go forward. So you could have the 3rd reading and then introduce the resolution.
Well, you can have a 2nd reading and introduce the resolutions too. They could be a week behind. They could be.
No,
I think.
But the ordinance has to pass before the resolution can
be voted on.
Right.
So you can have 3. You could have 3 readings of each.
Does this resolution need 1 reading or 3?
3. So if you introduce them,
suspend and then see how the vote comes out.
Right. But if you introduce the resolution and the ordinance,
Where's our
you could probably sit down, Rusty, if you wanted.
That's all right.
If you wanted to.
I also wouldn't answer Pat's question.
Right. So I think that
okay, we'll deal with it.
So
I'm convinced.
Mr. Rittenhouse, you cannot move forward with the annexation until this.
I don't, given my past events, I don't feel comfortable doing that and having a veto or anything else that come up the last minute.
And then he can move forward with this petition.
And that's fine too. So we can bring forward the resolution.
After he brings forward his petition. Not until.
The ordinance and resolution.
So you'll do the ordinance, I'll file the petition, then we'll do the
yes.
resolution. Okay.
And we do have the question.
Mr. McGee, to answer your question, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that there are certain sections within the city of Athens that currently are serviced by LEAX, and they are currently paying the LEAX rate.
Okay.
And Tupper's Plain.
One example is the dairy bar.
Yep.
So,
And there's certain dairy, Tupper's Plain water customers in Athens, so, that pay Tupper's Plain.
one potential thing that you could look at doing, if it is a concern you have, is perhaps you could get a release from the property owner when this is, at the time this is done, and that would at least affect anyone else that's in their chain of title.
I would hope so. I just have a little concern about treating citizens at different levels of payments to any kind of.
I understand.
Even though it's for a good cause, and I really do question the legality of the process of doing that. I can see how you could try to get around it through the waiver, but I would like to know if Lisa had really considered that as a legal issue. So, just a point.
Very good.
I'll ask.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, and she said to email her any questions that you have.
Right.
This is a great opportunity. Lawyer to lawyer.
Which council, which committee am I on? I guess so.
No, I think that would be, because you can put it in
No,
terms that
I'd
would
be
be
happy to
complete
do
sense.
that.
So,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say that. So we have somebody to come and speak to this, please.
Thank you. Again, Mike Michelle. I've lived out on Lyric Road for about 33 years and live about a mile and a half from this proposed development. I'm absolutely appalled at the idea of that large of a development coming into this area just because there's insufficient transportation infrastructure there to support any more traffic coming from these types of developments. We already have the monster across the road there at University Estates. We've got the AEP building that's in there. We've got the bus garage from MRDD, along with all the traffic that comes in out of the plains. Between Lurig Road and Union Street is always a mess. ODOT did a little bit of work there, putting an extra turn lane, which can accommodate about maybe 4 cars at a time. I don't know how you would guarantee prompt response from fire and police coming through that area, especially when there's trains coming through that intersection. I don't believe that this area can support that large of a development, and I think that this needs to go back to the planning stage with the city to get more transportation access to this entire little area, because you're still looking at more houses being built out Armitage Road as well as out my road. You've got Vore Ridge Road coming in there, as well as I said, all the traffic coming in and out of the plains. Not to mention the fairgrounds traffic coming in there during Fair Week. And I think you already have dealt with a lot of problems with the venue out there as far as lack of planning, but whenever that got rushed through the stages of transferring ownership there. So I'm really encouraging you folks to slow down on this a little bit. I was really shocked to see Councilwoman Fall's comments in the paper that it looks like this is just a done deal and it's going to slide through. I'd really like to see some planning done in this area so that you have infrastructure available to this large of a development. I think it would also benefit the developer because once potential clients of the businesses or residents who are going to move into these condos and apartments see that they can't get in or out in a timely manner, I think they'd be dissuaded from wanting to locate there. So please take your time. It's a planning and development committee. Let's do some planning this time. We're all Democrats here. We can do a little bit of science and get some transportation studies in the area to see if this area can indeed support the kind of traffic that they're talking about coming in and out of here. And I really thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one thing that is normally required for developments like this is a traffic study. So that we have, Andy Stone has been looking at contacting the train railroad to see the anticipated levels of use of that railroad and has been looking at some of these issues. So it's not like we're in the dark or anything, but we have been looking at a lot of the infrastructure issues and stuff. And I would encourage you to talk to Andy Stone and to direct some of the really specific questions because he may be able to answer them in a more technical way. So,
Thank you.
So, any other questions? Now, as I said, this is going to be a super long process for annexation and development because it goes through many, and there'll be lots of time for public and committee hearings. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay. I want to, next item is the residential care facility. This has been forwarded by the Planning Commission as a change in our planning in our Chapter 23. I'm announcing it tonight because it needs to have a public hearing on February 17th, Monday. Yeah. Okay. So there's a public hearing. This particular thing will, that's the Tuesday, it's Monday.
February 15th.
February
Oh,
15th,
sorry,
sorry.
February
15th. Chapter 20, it will change Chapter 23.04 permitted use for the R1 residential zone to include as a principal permitted use the following: residential health care facilities. Residential care facilities for the development needs disabled, provided that such facilities comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Currently, it's in Chapter 2304 as a conditional use. It's being moved to a permitted use. So we will have a public hearing on that February 15th at 7 o'clock here. Okay. After that, it will go through the ordinance.
How are they addressing the parking?
It would be all the same.
No changes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Miscellaneous? Is that right? Yay, I don't have any.
Okay.
Does anybody have any? No.
We'll move on to transportation then. Councilmember Pappy, please.
Thank you. I only hope I can explain as well after everything we've done tonight. Okay. I just forwarded to all city council members on their emails our first item, which is the East State Street design we need to discuss because we need to appropriate and move forward. There are two pie charts there, well, one pie chart, and proposed funding. I think that will help you in terms of understanding what we're looking at. Administration, I'm going to have you help me too on talking through this point. For those of you that remember, we went through public hearings and worked with ODOT for a traffic design for East State Street. The proposal that was determined or that the city wanted to move forward with was not funded by ODOT.
This is the upper part of East State Street.
No. This is the redesign of the turn lanes and to improve the traffic flow coming off of the Highway 33 and then moving forward on down the road where the city is more involved with that.
I call that the upper.
Okay, so it's from, let's say, from Bob Evans down to Walmart. How about that? Okay?
And what's being requested is...
So, design.
Yeah, and it's $450,000 coming out of 572, TC 500s. And once again, our city engineer has done a great job stitching this together. Again, referring back to Member Pappy's pie chart, and I know that people out there in TV land can't see this. However, this is a 3-year plan. This is going out to, for a 2-year plan, well, 3 really, going out to in terms of funding out to 2018 to piece this together, piece it together financially. For construction engineering, preliminary engineering.
So the other pieces to that, if there are questions on that, is there's also ramp work that will need to be done, and ODOT is also funding a study to look at the actual pieces of Route 33 that impact this this design as well in terms of traffic flow issues. So there's going to be kind of two projects. What we'd like to happen is two projects happening at the same time, and that will be worked into the design only in terms of just the discussion of that. Any questions? Maybe that's the best way to go tonight.
Question down there.
Member Pappy,
thank
can
you.
you remind us of what the timeline is on this?
So design and engineering this year with construction in 17. The other thing to remember right now, folks, is we're also doing traffic studies related to, that whole Charles Street around the community center. All this will be a part of the discussion. Another piece that is moving forward with the MOUs of understanding is the sidewalk on the, I guess that's the south side? South side of the street, where we have no sidewalk currently, and that is OU property. It'd be from the community center on farther down towards Kroger and that way. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. There's a lot of money that's been, Director Stone has been able to put together here. So next week we'd like to bring the ordinance forward for the design and engineering so we can keep this process moving. Mayor?
Just another thing with this is that our city engineer is hoping to be able to put this together as one project, bid it as one project, as ODOT is on the decking and everything else on 33 itself, and therefore if we're able to bundle this in 2017, it would also be helpful in getting this through. And I'm glad you also mentioned the sidewalk improvements as well. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. With the new pool and looking at flow design, there's some possibilities there as well with improving access in multiple locations. So.
I think, if I may, a concern that I have that I think we all need to, my hope is that we would consider and look at is traffic calming and pedestrian safety. I know frequently, since over 15 years ago when East State Street was widened, it has now seen more volume of traffic. Consequently, I also think people tend to drive quicker. Almost any trip that I've taken down East State Street, I'm experiencing people around me going faster than the stated speed limit. I like to drive quickly. It's on my record, I've received more than one speeding ticket in my lifetime. But nonetheless, I'm mindful when I'm on East State Street, too, that the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. People are often going 35 to 45. And again, if we have a pool nearby in a residential community and we're encouraging pedestrians to be out and about, as well as cyclists, it's definitely challenging and maybe not safe.
I think if you all look at the pie chart in the pink, it says East State Street sidewalk, paving, remarking, intersection improvements. I think that Director Stone is very well aware of that concern, Member Butler, and he's put that in as part of the design. And the other piece that I'll just say tonight, but this will go on farther down the road, is the involvement of the FINA Far East Neighborhood Association in some of these discussions and talk regarding how to improve the traffic and pedestrian flow and safety and all of those things. So I know that is part of when it gets farther along in the process that Director Stone is very involved in wanting to meet with those groups. So.
Director Stone is very involved. One of his guiding principles is Complete the Street, which looks at multi-modal, multi-level sort of design aspects. And so I think that it's been counted into everybody's head about that. And I think with the other improvements, and that this whole process will have multiple public hearings. And so I think
He's put a lot of time and effort into safety on this particular stretch of city infrastructure, to include refuge, possibly having a median to where someone can safely
across half the street and then across the other half. So there's a lot that's gone into this.
And ODOT's ready to move forward too, so all these pieces tie together, so we need to move our pieces forward as well. Any other questions on that matter? Good to go? Okay. The next item is determining to proceed and levying final 2015 sidewalk assessments. This is for the project that occurred over the course of this past year. That was May Avenue, North Congress, and Central Avenue. And a couple things on this. This will be two separate ordinances, one for the levying and then one for the final assessment. Is that right? Yes. So that's what's going on. I wanted to give some kudos out to our engineering department. Initially, there were some concerns in terms of the communication flow and that kind of thing. But in the end, there was nobody who had issue with their sidewalk issue, and that has a lot to do with our staff, especially Jessica Ideen, going out, speaking to folks and talking about the particular issues related to each of the projects. And so that took a lot of time and a lot of effort on her part. So in the end, it actually turned out pretty well. For the future, which we will continue to improve our sidewalks in the city, for the future we will be lengthening that communication process so nobody is taken off guard. In the future, we discussed this at length when this was going on this summer. So we will make sure that happens again this year. Okay, any questions on that particular issue? All right, the other major issue for this evening is the Franklin Avenue improvements. This is a CDBG program where we have, many of you are familiar with Franklin Avenue. It has a lot of drainage issues which cause pavement issues and all those kinds of things. And so it's a $200,000 project. That's the amount of money that we have awarded, that we're going for. Well, we don't know yet. But we're putting that together is what we're discussing tonight for sidewalk, curb, drainage to go for that grant.
Will there need to be a public hearing?
No, we already held the public hearings for the Franklin Avenue, so it's really just that process of authorizing, advertising, design. And of note, there will be a sidewalk assessment with this project, just as there were with Grosvenor or any other place that we go in and do repairs.
So for next week, it'll be authorizing and design.
Okay.
There's a lot of...
Is there anything additional that the ordinance that covers it?
It may include appropriation. I just have to work with the clerk on.
We don't have a number on that.
I liked your a little over $200,000 figure. So.
And I wanted to make one miscellaneous comment. Again, another kudos for we've spoken about our Director Stone several times this evening, but he gave a presentation called Show Me the Dollars. It was part of their series that they do for municipalities, and he was actually a presenter in early December. And it was very well received, and it basically talks about, when we go back to our pie chart here, how to help other municipalities put together the different funds needed to improve their infrastructure. And Athens, over the last several years, has been getting a lot of notice from the state agencies on our ability to write the grants and go for these different pots of money, so to speak. And this is becoming increasingly more important as there is less funds coming down from the legislature in Columbus. So he actually was the presenter, and
apparently it was very well received by other municipalities in the area. So that's a piece of kudos for our engineering department. That would be it.
That would be it. Okay. Well, that's a nice note to end on, because all those improvements happened around Athens City, and we're grateful for all the hard work. This ends our committee sessions tonight at 9:37 p.m. And as I said, we'll meet next week, not on Monday, but on Tuesday, January 19th. So thanks so much for being here tonight. Good night.